Picture this. You wake up before dawn in 1500s Lisbon, and the smell hits you first. Not coffee brewing or bread baking, but something far more exotic and valuable. Black pepper, cinnamon, cloves, and nutmeg wafting through the morning air like liquid gold. These weren't just cooking ingredients back then. They were the cryptocurrency of their day, worth more per pound than silver and capable of starting wars or ending kingdoms. The Tagus River is already buzzing with activity as the first light creeps over Europe's most important spice port. Somewhere out there, an India ship has just dropped anchor after a journey that took the better part of a year, carrying cargo worth enough to buy entire city blocks. And standing on the dock, clutching his ledger like it contains the secrets of the universe, is our port clerk. Let's call him António, about to have one of those days that makes you question your career choices. Now, before we dive into this world of maritime madness and merchant mayhem, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. I want you to drop a comment about what fascinates you most about the spice trade. Was it the insane profits, the deadly journeys, or maybe how pepper literally shaped the modern world? Your thoughts always help me create better content for you. The thing about being a port clerk in 1500s Lisbon wasn't just about keeping neat handwriting and counting sacks. António had to be part accountant, part diplomat, and part detective, all while dealing with merchants who could buy and sell him 10 times over before lunch. This particular morning, he's paired with a young factor named Miguel. Think of him as a medieval logistics coordinator with the stress levels of a modern air traffic controller. The India ship they're dealing with today isn't just any vessel. This beauty has survived monsoons that could flip houses, pirates who'd sell their own mothers for a decent sword, and navigation so uncertain that reaching the right continent was considered a minor miracle. The cargo hold of this ship contains what amounts to a floating treasure vault. Thousands of pounds of black pepper, cinnamon bark that costs more than gold, and spices so rare that European nobles would literally kill for them. But here's where it gets interesting. You might think unloading a ship full of the world's most valuable spices would be a careful, organized process. Wrong. It was controlled chaos that would make Black Friday shoppers look civilized. As the sun comes up, António watches dozens of small boats called lighters swarming around the India ship like hungry sharks. Each one is trying to get the best position to start hauling cargo to shore, and the competition is fierce enough to start actual fistfights. The first challenge of the day hits António before he's even had his morning wine. The ship's captain is claiming his pepper sacks are bone dry, but António's experienced eye can spot water damage from 50 feet away. Some of these sacks have been sitting in seawater for weeks, and wet pepper isn't just worthless. It's actively dangerous because it can rot and contaminate entire shipments. One bad call here could cost merchants fortunes and potentially destroy António's reputation forever. Miguel, meanwhile, is running around the dock like his pants are on fire, trying to secure warehouse space before the inevitable afternoon storm rolls in. Storage in Lisbon's Spice District was more competitive than finding parking in modern Manhattan. A good, dry warehouse bay could mean the difference between profit and total financial ruin. These weren't just storage spaces. They were fortresses designed to protect cargo worth more than most people would see in 10 lifetimes. The numbers behind this operation would blow your mind. A single pound of black pepper in 1500s Europe could cost the equivalent of what an average worker made in a week. We're talking about cargo shipments worth millions in today's money, all sitting in wooden crates on a crowded dock where a single spark could turn the whole operation into the whirl sacks. He's essentially handling the medieval equivalent of cryptocurrency transactions' most expensive barbecue. António isn't just counting, where every tally mark in his ledger represents serious money, but the real complexity comes from the paperwork. You thought modern bureaucracy was bad. Try managing international trade in an era when a single document could take months to verify, and forgeries were so common that merchants had developed their own secret codes and symbols. Every sack that comes off that ship needs documentation proving its origin, its quality, its weight, and its ownership. Antonio's ledger isn't just a record book, it's a legal document that could end up in courts across Europe if something goes wrong. The dock itself is like a medieval version of Wall Street, except with more actual pirates and significantly worse hygiene. Money changers set up temporary tables where they'll convert Portuguese coins into Flemish guilders or Venetian ducats, all while keeping one eye on their cash and another on potential thieves. These weren't just currency exchanges. They were complex financial instruments that could include credit arrangements, insurance policies, and futures contracts that wouldn't look out of place in a modern commodities market. Miguel discovers that securing warehouse space isn't just about having money. It's about having connections, timing, and occasionally a willingness to slip someone a little extra something under the table. The best storage bays are controlled by established merchant families who've been in the spice trade for generations. Getting access to their facilities means proving you're trustworthy, profitable, and not likely to bring unwanted attention from tax collectors or rival merchants. The social dynamics of the spice dock were fascinating and brutal. Established merchants treated newcomers like potential threats or useful idiots, depending on their mood and the day's profits. Antonio has learned to read the subtle signs that indicate whether a merchant is genuinely interested in doing business, or just fishing for information about competitors' operations. A raised eyebrow at the wrong moment could signal that someone knows more about your cargo than they're letting on. As morning progresses into midday, the real drama begins. Disputes over cargo quality weren't just business disagreements. They were potential disasters that could destroy relationships built over decades. When Antonio spots those water-damaged pepper sacks, he knows he's about to step into a minefield of accusations, counter-accusations, and negotiations that could determine whether several merchants go home rich or ruined. The inspection process itself is an art form. Antonio doesn't just look at the outside of sacks. He uses a special probe to extract samples from deep inside, checking for moisture, contamination, and quality. This isn't just about being thorough. It's about survival in a business where one mistake could end your career permanently. Merchants watch every move he makes, looking for signs of favoritism, incompetence, or corruption. Miguel, meanwhile, is discovering that warehouse negotiations involve more psychology than most people realize. The owners don't just want money. They want assurance that your cargo won't attract unwanted attention, that you'll be gone quickly, and that you won't bring problems to their doorstep. In an era when associating with the wrong merchant could get you investigated by the Inquisition, choosing your business partners was literally a matter of life and death. The financial instruments being used on this dock would impress modern derivatives traders. Bills of exchange allowed merchants to move money across Europe without actually transporting coins, which was revolutionary for its time. Credit arrangements let established traders leverage their reputations to secure cargo before they had cash in hand. Insurance policies, though primitive, provided some protection against the countless disasters that could destroy a spice shipment. But perhaps the most impressive aspect of this whole operation is how it functions, despite the incredible logistical challenges. Remember, this is happening in an era before telegraphs, before reliable weather forecasting, before standardized weights and measures. Every transaction requires personal relationships, trust built over years, and an almost supernatural ability to assess risk and opportunity in real time. Antonio's role as port clerk makes him a crucial figure in this complex ecosystem. He's not just recording transactions. He's serving as an unofficial mediator, quality controller, and sometimes the only neutral party in disputes that could involve thousands of pounds worth of merchandise. His reputation for fairness and accuracy is literally his most valuable asset, worth more than any salary he might earn. As the day progresses and the dock fills with more ships, more merchants, and more opportunities for both profit and disaster, Antonio and Miguel are about to discover just how quickly fortunes can change in the spice trade. The afternoon will bring new challenges, unexpected opportunities, and decisions that will determine whether this day ends in celebration or catastrophe. The afternoon heat is making everyone irritable, and that's when things get really interesting on the spice dock. António wipes sweat from his forehead as he watches a heated argument unfold between two Flemish merchants over a shipment of cinnamon bark. One claims the other's samples were switched during the morning inspection, and now they're both demanding he verify every single piece. Meanwhile, Miguel is frantically trying to negotiate with a warehouse owner who's suddenly decided his rates have doubled because of increased demand. Here's something most people don't realize about the medieval spice trade. It wasn't just about moving exotic seasonings from point A to point B. These docks were essentially the world's first global commodities exchange, complete with insider trading, market manipulation, and enough backstabbing to make modern Wall Street look like a church picnic. António has seen merchants deliberately spread rumors about contaminated shipments just to drive down prices, then swoop in to buy the same cargo at a discount. The complexity of what's happening around them would make your head spin. That innocent-looking conversation between two merchants near the rope coils. They're actually negotiating a futures contract for next season's pepper harvest in Malabar, 6 months before the ships even leave port. The woman counting coins at the money table isn't just making change. She's calculating exchange rates that factor in political instability in 3 different kingdoms and the likelihood of pirate attacks along the shipping routes. Miguel discovers that warehouse politics are more cutthroat than royal court intrigue. The facility he thought he'd secured for their spice cargo suddenly becomes unavailable when the owner realizes he can rent the same space to a Venetian merchant for triple the price. But here's where experience pays off. António knows that the Venetians' reputation includes a tendency to store goods longer than agreed upon, creating headaches that no amount of money can solve. A quiet word in the warehouse owner's ear about potential complications, and suddenly, Miguel's original deal looks much more attractive. The sampling process reveals just how sophisticated these medieval quality control methods really were. António doesn't just poke holes in sacks and sniff the contents. He's looking for specific indicators that tell entire stories about the cargo's journey. Those slight brown spots on the pepper? They indicate the sacks were stored too close to the ship's cooking area during the voyage. The way certain cinnamon pieces break when bent reveals whether they were harvested at the right time of year. This isn't just inspection, it's forensic analysis that would impress modern food scientists. But the real drama unfolds when António spots something that makes his blood run cold. Evidence of deliberate tampering. Someone has carefully opened several pepper sacks, removed the premium contents, and replaced them with lower-grade product mixed with sand and debris. This isn't just theft, it's fraud on a scale that could destroy multiple merchant houses and potentially trigger diplomatic incidents between trading nations. The investigation that follows turns the dock into something resembling a medieval crime scene. António has to trace the chain of custody for every sack, interviewing dock workers, ship's officers, and warehouse supervisors. Each conversation reveals new layers of complexity in the cargo handling process. The sacks were transferred between 3 different lighters during unloading, stored temporarily in 2 separate facilities, and handled by crews from 4 different merchant houses. Any one of dozens of people could have been responsible for the tampering. Miguel, meanwhile, is learning that reputation management in the spice trade is more important than actual profits. Word of the contaminated cargo is already spreading through the dock's gossip network, faster than news of a royal death. Merchants who were eager to do business this morning are suddenly finding excuses to avoid their warehouse bay. The contamination hasn't even been confirmed yet, but the mere suspicion is enough to make their cargo radioactive in the marketplace. The social hierarchy of the spice dock becomes crystal clear during crisis moments like these. Established merchant families with generations of trading experience can weather scandals that would destroy newcomers. They have relationships, credit arrangements, and political connections that provide protection against both legitimate problems and malicious rumours. António watches as a single raised eyebrow from a senior Genoese trader can make other merchants scatter like startled pigeons. The money tables become the focal point of increasingly desperate negotiations as news of the cargo problems spreads. Currency values fluctuate by the hour as merchants try to liquidate positions before potential losses become real disasters. The Portuguese real strengthens against Flemish currency as local traders smell opportunity in the chaos, while Venetian ducats become harder to find as their merchants adopt a wait-and-see approach to new deals. António's investigation reveals the incredible sophistication of medieval supply chain management. Every step of the spice journey from Indian growing regions to European markets involves multiple intermediaries, each adding their own markup and potential for problems. The pepper in question passed through at least 7 different hands before reaching Lisbon, with documentation that reads like a medieval version of international shipping manifests. The warehouse situation becomes even more complicated when Miguel discovers that their assigned storage bay has a leak in the roof. What looked like a minor drip this morning has turned into a steady stream that threatens to damage any cargo stored beneath it. Negotiations with the facility owner reveal that repairs were supposedly scheduled for next month, but everyone knows that timeline is meaningless when your livelihood depends on keeping valuable spices dry. As afternoon storms gather on the horizon, the entire dock transforms into a frenzied race against time and weather. Cargo that seemed secure this morning now faces potential water damage that could turn profitable shipments into total losses. António watches crews scrambling to move vulnerable goods to higher ground, while merchants frantically renegotiate storage arrangements that seemed solid just hours earlier. The dispute resolution process that António initiates reveals medieval commerce's sophisticated approach to handling conflicts. Rather than relying on royal courts that might take months to reach decisions, the spice dock has its own informal but highly effective arbitration system. Senior merchants who've earned reputations for fairness serve as judges in disputes, with their decisions carrying the weight of law among trading communities. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this crisis is how it demonstrates the interconnected nature of global trade in 1500. The contaminated pepper problem isn't just a local Lisbon issue. It has implications for merchants in Antwerp, Venice, and London who've already committed to purchasing portions of this cargo. António's documentation will become crucial evidence in legal proceedings that could span multiple countries and take years to resolve. The afternoon auction that was supposed to be the day's crowning achievement now hangs in the balance, with millions in today's money at stake. The afternoon auction house transforms from a place of civilized commerce into something resembling a medieval war room. António clutches his ledger like a shield as he enters the counting room, knowing that the next few hours will determine whether he goes home tonight as a respected clerk or a man whose career just evaporated faster than morning mist. The air inside is thick with tension, tobacco smoke, and the kind of nervous energy that makes grown men sweat through their finest doublets. Miguel follows close behind, carrying samples of the disputed pepper in small leather pouches that suddenly feel heavier than cannons. Each pouch represents a different theory about what went wrong with their cargo. Was it contamination during the voyage, deliberate tampering by competitors, or just the kind of bad luck that turns profitable ventures into financial nightmares? The merchants gathering around the auction table eye these samples like vultures circling a carcass. The room itself tells the story of Lisbon's spice empire. Tapestries from India hang alongside maps marking trade routes that stretch from the Moluccas to London. Account books bound in leather occupy shelves that reach the ceiling, each one containing records of deals that built fortunes or destroyed them. The massive oak table dominating the center of the room has seen more money change hands than most royal treasuries handle in a decade. But today's auction isn't proceeding according to the usual script. Word of António's investigation has reached the counting room ahead of them, and the carefully orchestrated dance of bidding and counterbidding has turned into something more like a medieval trial. Merchants who arrived expecting routine negotiations are now positioning themselves for either massive opportunities or complete disaster, depending on how the contamination issue resolves. The Flemish contingent occupies one corner of the room, their representatives whispering in rapid dialect while casting suspicious glances at everyone else. These aren't just traders, they're representatives of merchant houses that have been moving spices through Northern Europe for generations. Their decision to participate or withdraw from today's auction could signal confidence or panic to other buyers, creating a domino effect that reaches markets as far away as the Baltic Sea. Meanwhile, the Venetians have adopted their characteristic wait-and-see approach, positioning themselves near the exit while maintaining carefully neutral expressions. António has learned to read Venetian merchants like weather signs. Their body language often predicts market movements better than any formal analysis. Today, their studied indifference suggests they know something about the contaminated cargo that others haven't figured out yet. The auction master, a grizzled veteran named Dom Fernando, who's overseen more spice sales than anyone cares to count, calls for order with the kind of authority that comes from handling millions in medieval currency without losing a single escudo to theft or miscounting. His reputation for fairness has made him wealthy, but today's session will test even his legendary diplomatic skills. Antonio's samples become the centerpiece of an impromptu investigation that turns the auction into something resembling a medieval CSI episode. Each merchant examines the pepper with tools that would look familiar to modern quality inspectors. Small knives for cutting, magnifying lenses for close examination, and sensitive scales for detecting weight discrepancies. But they're also using techniques that seem almost supernatural. Experienced traders can identify pepper's origin region just by smell, or determine storage conditions by the sound spices make when poured. The bidding process reveals the incredible sophistication of medieval financial instruments. These aren't simple cash transactions. They're complex arrangements involving credit from banks in Florence, insurance policies underwritten by London guilds, and delivery schedules that must coordinate with harvest cycles in India. A single spice lot might be purchased by a Flemish merchant using Venetian credit, insured by Portuguese underwriters, and delivered to buyers in Hamburg who haven't even been born yet. Miguel discovers that his warehouse problems are just the tip of an iceberg that threatens to sink the entire day's operations. The roof leak he thought was a minor inconvenience has revealed structural problems that could close the facility entirely. Worse yet, rumours are spreading that the same construction flaws exist in other warehouses throughout the spice district. Cargo that seemed secure this morning might need emergency relocation before nightfall. The contamination investigation takes an unexpected turn when Antonio's detailed examination reveals something that changes everything. The tampering wasn't random theft. It was surgical precision designed to target specific grades of pepper while leaving others untouched. This level of sophistication suggests inside knowledge of the cargo manifest and access to the ship during unloading. The crime scene has suddenly expanded to include every person who handled the shipment since it left India. Dom Fernando's auction techniques demonstrate why he's survived decades in a business that destroys most participants within years. Rather than cancelling the sale due to the contamination concerns, he restructures the entire process to account for uncertainty. Lots are divided into verified and questionable categories, with bidding proceeding simultaneously on both. It's like running two parallel auctions, where success in one might compensate for failure in the other. The Genoese merchants, who've been quietly observing from the back of the room, suddenly emerge as major players when they reveal they've been tracking similar contamination patterns in cargoes from other ships. Their intelligence network, built over centuries of Mediterranean trading, has identified what appears to be an organized effort to manipulate spice markets through targeted sabotage. Antonio's contaminated pepper isn't an isolated incident. It's part of a larger conspiracy. currency fluctuations add another layer of complexity to the afternoon's chaos. The Portuguese real has strengthened against most European currencies due to morning rumours about increased spice supplies. But news of contamination is now driving values in the opposite direction. Merchants who locked in exchange rates this morning are either celebrating unexpected profits or facing devastating losses, depending on their positions. Miguel's search for alternative warehouse space leads him into negotiations that reveal the hidden infrastructure supporting Lisbon's spice trade. Behind every visible facility are networks of private storage areas, emergency backup locations, and underground vaults that most people never see. These hidden resources come at premium prices, but they're often the difference between salvaging a shipment and watching it turn into expensive compost. The social dynamics in the auction room shift like tides as new information emerges about the contamination. Merchants who were avoiding António's cargo this morning are now showing renewed interest, either because they've identified opportunities others missed or because they know something about the situation that hasn't become public knowledge. In the spice trade, information is often more valuable than the actual merchandise. António's role evolves from simple record keeper to detective, mediator, and sometimes reluctant judge as disputes multiply throughout the afternoon. His ledger entries are becoming legal documents that will be referenced in courts across Europe for years to come. Every decision he makes about cargo quality, storage arrangements, and documentation could determine the financial fate of merchants whose operations span continents. The warehouse situation reaches crisis levels when Miguel discovers that the facility owner has been quietly negotiating with competing merchants for the same storage space. What appeared to be a straightforward rental agreement turns out to be part of a complex bidding war where António and Miguel are just the opening act. The real drama unfolds as established merchant houses flex their political and financial muscle to secure prime storage locations. As storm clouds gather outside, the auction room becomes a pressure cooker where decades of commercial relationships are tested against immediate survival needs. Merchants who've traded together for years suddenly find themselves on opposite sides of disputes that could reshape Lisbon's spice market permanently. António watches alliances form and dissolve in real time as the afternoon's events force everyone to choose between loyalty and profit. The contamination investigation yields evidence that transforms the entire day's narrative from simple bad luck to international intrigue. António's careful documentation reveals patterns that suggest coordination between corrupt dock workers, compromised ship officers, and possibly even rival trading companies. What started as a routine cargo inspection has uncovered a conspiracy that reaches from Lisbon's docks to counting houses in Venice and beyond. The investigation reaches its climax when Dom Fernando calls for a complete halt to proceedings, something that hasn't happened in the auction house's 50-year history. The room falls silent, except for the sound of rain beginning to patter against the windows, as if even the weather is holding its breath. António realizes that his careful documentation has just uncovered something far bigger than contaminated pepper. This conspiracy could topple merchant houses that have ruled European trade for generations. What happens next would make modern forensic accountants weep with envy. Dom Fernando orders every sample re-examined, using techniques that seem like medieval magic, but are actually centuries of accumulated trading wisdom. Experienced merchants can detect tampering methods by the way pepper granules break under pressure, or identify specific regional adulterants by their color patterns when mixed with wine. It's CSI meets the spice trade, except the stakes are entire family fortunes rather than just solving crimes. Miguel's warehouse crisis takes on new urgency when he discovers that the facility problems aren't coincidental. The same mysterious forces behind the cargo contamination have been systematically targeting storage facilities throughout the spice district. Roofs that were solid last week suddenly develop leaks, foundations that survived decades start showing cracks, and warehouse owners who've been reliable for years begin making impossible demands. Someone is orchestrating a coordinated attack on Lisbon's spice infrastructure. The social dynamics in the auction room shift into something resembling a medieval version of a corporate takeover battle. Merchant families that have competed for decades suddenly find themselves forced into unlikely alliances against this common threat. The Flemish traders share intelligence with their Venetian rivals, while Portuguese merchants offer warehouse space to competitors they've been trying to undercut for years. António watches centuries-old feuds evaporate in the face of an enemy that threatens everyone's survival. But here's where the story takes a turn that would make Hollywood scriptwriters jealous. The contamination pattern António has been tracking leads to a shocking discovery. The sabotage is coming from inside Lisbon's own merchant establishment. One of the city's most respected trading houses has been systematically weakening competitors by targeting their cargo quality, warehouse security, and financial arrangements. It's like discovering that your trusted business partner has been slowly poisoning your morning wine for months. The evidence unfolds like a complex puzzle, where every piece reveals 3 more missing parts. Bills of exchange that seemed routine turn out to contain coded messages coordinating the sabotage efforts. Warehouse rental agreements include clauses that allow the facility owners to terminate leases if certain market conditions develop, conditions that the conspirators have been artificially creating. Even some of the dock workers involved in cargo handling have been receiving payments that dwarf their official wages. Dom Fernando's response to this revelation demonstrates why he survived decades in a business that eats most participants alive. Rather than cancelling the auction or calling for investigations that could take months, he transforms the entire process into an opportunity. The contaminated lots become evidence in a case that will reshape Portuguese maritime law, while the clean cargo gets premium prices from merchants eager to distance themselves from the scandal. Miguel discovers that warehouse politics extend far beyond simple storage arrangements. The facilities he's been negotiating for are actually controlled by a network of shell companies that trace back to the same merchant house orchestrating the sabotage. Every storage option he's explored has been designed to give his enemies access to their cargo, creating opportunities for further contamination or outright theft. Finding truly secure storage means going outside established networks entirely. The currency implications of this conspiracy are staggering. Exchange rates that seem to fluctuate randomly throughout the day were actually being manipulated through coordinated trades designed to destabilize specific merchant operations. The Portuguese real strength against Flemish currency wasn't market forces. It was artificial manipulation designed to make certain imports unprofitable while benefiting the conspirators' positions. António's ledger becomes the centerpiece of an investigation that will reshape European trade law. His meticulous documentation has captured not just the contamination evidence, but also the financial trails that reveal the conspiracy's scope. Every tally mark represents a piece of evidence that will be examined by courts from Lisbon to London. His careful record-keeping has accidentally created the most comprehensive case study of commercial fraud in medieval history. The warehouse situation reaches a resolution that demonstrates medieval problem-solving at its finest. When established facilities prove compromised or unavailable, Miguel discovers that Lisbon's spice merchants have been quietly developing alternative storage networks for exactly this type of emergency. Hidden vaults beneath churches, private chambers in noble houses, and even secure areas in military fortifications become temporary homes for valuable cargo. The auction itself transforms into something unprecedented in Lisbon's commercial history. Rather than simply selling spice lots to the highest bidders, Dom Fernando orchestrates a complex restructuring of the entire local trade network. Compromised merchant houses find themselves isolated as their former partners form new alliances. Fresh capital enters the market as previously excluded traders see opportunities to establish themselves in the chaos. But the most fascinating aspect of this crisis is how it reveals the incredible resilience of medieval commerce. Despite conspiracy, sabotage, and systematic attacks on their infrastructure, the spice trade adapts and continues. New relationships form overnight, alternative systems activate seamlessly, and the flow of valuable cargo from India to European markets never stops completely. It's like watching a medieval version of anti-fragility in action. The investigation's climax reveals connections that stretch across continents and involve players António never imagined. The conspiracy includes corrupt officials in Indian spice-growing regions, compromised ship captains on the long journey home, and even agents in northern European markets who've been manipulating demand to create artificial scarcity. What started as a simple cargo inspection has uncovered an international network of commercial sabotage. Miguel's final warehouse negotiations demonstrate the kind of creative problem-solving that made Portuguese merchants legendary. Unable to secure traditional storage, he arranges for their cargo to be distributed across dozens of smaller, secure locations throughout the city. It's more expensive and logistically complex, but it makes their spices nearly impossible to target for future sabotage. Sometimes the best defense against organized crime is organized chaos. As evening approaches and the storm intensifies outside, the auction room has become the command center for a complete reorganization of Lisbon's spice trade. New partnerships are forming, old alliances are dissolving, and the entire structure of Portuguese maritime commerce is reshaping itself in real time. António and Miguel find themselves not just surviving the day's chaos, but emerging as key players in whatever comes next. The conspiracy's exposure triggers a cascade of revelations that will echo through European markets for months. Similar sabotage operations are discovered in other major ports, suggesting this was just one part of a much larger effort to consolidate control over the global spice trade. Courts across Europe will spend years untangling the legal implications, while merchants scramble to verify the authenticity of their own cargo holdings. Yet perhaps the most remarkable aspect of this entire affair is how it demonstrates the fundamental strength of the medieval trading system. Despite facing coordinated attacks from within their own ranks, Lisbon's merchants adapt, overcome, and emerge stronger than before. New security protocols develop overnight, alternative supply chains activate, and the flow of precious spices continues to European tables without interruption. Dom Fernando's final auction results exceed everyone's expectations as clean cargo commands premium prices from merchants eager to demonstrate their distance from the scandal. The contaminated lots, now valuable as evidence rather than seasoning, sell to legal representatives preparing for what promises to be the commercial trial of the century. Even disaster becomes profitable when handled with sufficient skill and creativity. As night falls over the Tagus River and the last candles flicker in the counting house, António closes his ledger with hands that still shake slightly from the day's revelations. What started as routine cargo inspection became something far more extraordinary. A masterclass in medieval commerce that would make modern business schools look like amateur hour. Miguel secures the last of their spice lots in a warehouse that nobody could have imagined using 12 hours ago, proving that sometimes the best solutions come from complete desperation. The conspiracy that nearly destroyed half of Lisbon's merchant community has been exposed, but the real victory isn't in catching the criminals. It's in watching an entire trading system adapt and evolve in a single day. These merchants didn't just survive a coordinated attack on their livelihoods. They emerged with stronger networks, better security, and innovations that will influence global commerce for generations to come. António and Miguel walk home through rain-soaked streets that smell of pepper and possibility, carrying the knowledge that they've witnessed something remarkable. In an age when information travelled at the speed of sailing ships and trust was the only currency that really mattered, they've seen how human ingenuity and sheer stubborn determination can overcome even the most sophisticated attempts at sabotage. The spice trade will continue tomorrow with new faces, new alliances, and new methods. but the fundamental truth remains unchanged. Whether you're dealing with pepper, worth its weight in gold, or modern commodities markets, success comes from the same combination that built Portuguese maritime empire: careful documentation, strategic partnerships, and the kind of quick thinking that turns disasters into opportunities. So the next time you reach for that pepper shaker, remember Antonio and Miguel, and the day when paper, pepper, and perfect timing changed the course of global commerce forever.